먼저 강기춘 제주발전연구원장님께서 기획 사과하겠습니다.
네, 존경하는 내외 기빈 여러분 반갑습니다. 제주발전연구원장 강기춘입니다. 오늘이 아마 그 제주발전연구원의 그 마지막 남은 불꽃을 태우는 그런 거의 마지막 날이 아닌가 싶습니다. 여러분 다 잘 아시겠지만 다음 달 5월 1일부터 제주발전연구원이 제주연구원으로 재창업하게 됩니다. 앞으로 제주연구원으로 불러주시면 감사하겠습니다. 예, 오늘 제주의 미래라는 주제로 개최되는 오늘까지는 제주발전연구원입니다. 제주발전연구원 개원 20주년 해외 스카 초청 강연회에 참석해 주신 모든 분들께 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 특별히 강연회를 위해서 멀리 미국에서 제주를 찾아주신 제롬글랜 회장님께 깊은 감사를 드립니다. 제롬글랜 회장님은 현재 세계미래의회 의장과 UN 미래포럼 회장을 맡고 계시며 지난 37년간 미래연구와 관련해서 정부, 국제기구, 민간기업의 프로젝트를 진행하셨고, 여러분 아마 많이 읽어보셨겠지만 세계미래보고서 2055, UN 미래보고서
Good afternoon. If I speak too quickly, I've asked the translator to wave, knock on the door, because those who don't speak English will need translation. So I want to have a cooperation with the translator if I speak too quickly. There's been a lot of talk around the world about artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is a technology. The future is important, but it's not the whole game. It's like talking about the Industrial Revolution and saying that the whole Industrial Revolution was the steam engine. Well, the steam engine was important, the Industrial Revolution, but if that's all you focused on, you would have missed much of the whole Industrial Revolution. So we've written some scenarios that you can get a hold of with Dr. Park. You want to raise your hand there? Park Dong-suk is the chair of the Learning Project from Korea, and she can follow up with you on what you're interested in. But one of the things we try to make clear to people is we use the word NT for next technologies in the same way that we use ICT to mean a whole lot of different things together, because you can't keep listing everything, so you say ICT, right? We're going to have to do the same thing with this, because what's coming up is not only artificial intelligence, but robotics, synthetic biology, and genomics. Let me pause on synthetic biology. You're familiar with the idea of DNA. Take out part of the DNA, you put something else in, and all of a sudden the rose can glow at nighttime, right? But it's still a rose. Synthetic biology is not that. Synthetic biology is where you take some genetic material from one species, genetic material from another species, and another species, and you put them together and make a combination of a life form that's never existed before. Take, for example, those of us with little gray hair know that we get a little junk in our brain over years and years of having too much sugar in our coffee. And we don't remember as much what happened yesterday because of that, because our brains got all this junk getting in the way. Well, if we could find out the genetic material of something that can live in the brain, that's something like, in our digestive system, we have all kinds of organisms in our digestive system. That if we did not have them, we would not be alive. We actually have more microorganisms in our body than we have cells. We're a minority in our own body, by the way. But we have nothing up here. Nothing up here in the sense of digesting the material of brain. Synthetic biology, we can figure out what are all the properties that we need to clean up that junk in our brain. Make that, put it into our brain, clean our brain out. That's one kind of product of synthetic biology. There will be many products of synthetic biology. One of the fathers of this area made the comment that as we write computer code to do things that we can't do, we will write genetic code to have biology to do what has never been done before. The area of synthetic biology could be bigger than the Industrial Revolution. Think of all the things that nature does that we can't do. And then imagine that we sit in front of a computer, take the genetic materials in front of a computer, put it all together, then buy the parts, put it together, and make new life forms. That's a very big deal. Maybe as big as maybe as big as artificial intelligence. Then we've got computational science. Computational science, in the old days, we would make a hypothesis, we would design an experiment, we would carry out the experiment, we would publish the results, and someone else is supposed to duplicate it. Which, by the way, duplicating science research is actually a very serious weak point of science today. Because people pay you to do the research, but they don't pay you to do the duplication as much. In any case, that's a slow process. What if you make a computer simulation and you ask people around the world to dedicate some of their unused computer time to do computer matching of molecular structures that could maybe address cancer? You can get millions of people to download some software to match up molecular structures very fast so that you can make a supercomputer at no cost to do research. That will speed up science amazingly. We've got computational biology, computational physics, computational engineering. We're going to be doing this more and more and more. And once you make a good computer model for simulation, you can copy it at no cost to the next person. At no cost. You just copy the program. This means that science will be sped up tremendously. That alone is a big deal, but you don't hear much about. I don't mean to embarrass anybody, but can I have a show of hands of how many people have ever heard of computational science? All right, now everybody's heard about it. Okay? Now that's an example. We're just focusing on artificial intelligence. We shouldn't. We should focus on all these things together. Cloud and big data analytics, yes, we're hearing more about that. But the idea of drawing on all of the available knowledge of the world simultaneously helps us learn much faster than before. Artificial and augmented reality. More and more people are now aware of that. Nanotechnology. More and more people are aware of that, but they don't understand we've got two kinds of nanotechnology in general. One kind we have today, we have a big machine that makes little things. In the future, we might have the ability to do the reverse, have little things, make little bigger things, that make little bigger things, that make little bigger things, that make a house. That's the way nature does it. A leaf is nanotechnology for food. We haven't learned how to do that ourselves yet, but we will eventually. So if we learn how to have small molecules create larger molecules, create larger materials, that means the waste in production will be almost zero. Because when you put an atom and a molecule exactly where you want to, what is waste? Waste where the molecule is in the wrong place. Right? Pollution is not a thing, it's its relationship. If you take cow manure and you put it in water, it's pollution. You put cow manure in a compost pile, it's not pollution. So pollution is not the thing, it's the relationship of the thing. Nanotechnology could be the tremendous influencer on reducing pollution worldwide if we learn how to do what nature does with the plant. Internet of Things, tele-everything, tele-everybody, semantic web. People are beginning to be aware of this. Telepresence, holographic communications, we've seen it in science fiction, we're going to start to see it more in offices. Intelligence augmentation, collective intelligence, 3D, 4D printing of materials and biology, drones, driverless cars, and other autonomous vehicles, conscious technology, and the synergies among these. Your telephone is how many different past products? Literally hundreds. Your telephone's a flashlight, it's an alarm clock, it's a calendar, it's all kinds of stuff. And it's portable. It's a camera, it's a flash camera, it's a video camera. It's an amazing amount of stuff to put together. So imagine all of these technologies starting to be put together into synergies. That's where the invention is. One of the classic tricks of inventors is you take all the things that have ever been done before on X and you put them across the top like this and make it like a little matrix and say, has this part ever existed with this part? And if it's yes, you don't work with it. If it's no, it's potential for invention. Imagine doing cross impacts of all of these things. What's the impact of nanotechnology on artificial intelligence? What's the effect of artificial intelligence on biology, 3D printing, etc., etc., etc.? This is where a lot of inventions will occur. Now, this is what I mean by synergies. This little image here is synergies among photovoltaics, as you can see on this little guy here at the top of there. Photovoltaics, robotics, satellites, artificial intelligence, drones, ICT, and genetic engineering all in one photograph. Looking for the synergies among these things. Don't just think of artificial intelligence. Now, where's all this stuff going? Different people have different views. My view is that you've got two basic mega trends. One is, you'll see this guy up at the top. He's a cyborg. For some reason, he couldn't see color. So they stuck a little thing in his head, and that thing picks up the vibration because orange is a different vibration than red tomato. Right? So his skull picks up the vibration, and therefore, in a sense, he's hearing color. And that's a relationship between the human brain and technology. Increasingly, we will do this, not necessarily like this, but we may do all kinds of new kinds of ways of integrating technology in and on our body. That seems to be a large-scale trend across the board. Then the other trend is the built environment will start to seem to be more conscious, more sentient. You go to the hotel, you take your shirt off, put it on the bed, and your shirt's, hey, hang me up. You laugh. But I want you to remember, that day in the future, sometime you throw your shirt down and talk to them to remember this talk. It's just like years ago, I said people will be sound walking down the street, and they'll look like they're talking to themselves, that they're crazy. But how often do we walk down the street today, talking out loud? And no one thinks you're crazy. Well, someone may think you're crazy, but not for that reason. Okay. So, you've got the humans becoming cyborgs, the built environment becoming intelligent, and the two of these things will merge eventually into a post-information age, which we refer to as the conscious technology age, so that human consciousness and technology could become a continuum, where you can't quite distinguish one from the other. If I call you on a telephone, am I talking to you, or am I talking to a machine? Right? Well, we say, I'm talking to you. Because we got over the idea that we're talking to a machine, talking to a machine, talking to a machine, talking to a machine, talk to some bones in our ears, and bingo, we say, I'm talking to you. Eventually, we may get to the same idea that the distinction between human consciousness and technology will be so interdependent and so connected that we don't even make a distinction anymore. Now, these slides will be kept here, and anybody can have access to them as far as we're concerned. I won't read all of this sort of stuff. But the idea is each age has its own product, power, wealth, place, war, and time. There's other things you can say about civilization, but these are the ones I just picked out. In your agricultural age, or extraction age, or mining age, your main product was food resources. Power was controlled by religion. Wealth was determined by land. Place was earth resources. People fought over location. And time was cyclical. There was nothing new under the sun. Because there wasn't anything new under the sun. The only thing that predict the future was where in the cycle it was. Then along comes the Industrial Revolution. The product is a machine. Nation states become more powerful. It's a new invention. You may remember in European history they have a famous painting in France where Napoleon was going to get crowned the king. And the religious leader was there in the painting. And Napoleon takes the crown out of the religious leader's hands and puts it on his own head. That's a symbolic transition of power moving to the nation state. Religion's still there, but the power grows on top of it. For example, in your brain, you got the old brain here, and you got the new brain up here. They still work together. This is still necessary. But the action moves up to this frontal part here. The same way, the action moved to the nation state. Wealth was controlled by capital. Place was factory, war was fought over resources, and time became linear. In the information age, information services, power increasingly moves to corporation. You've probably heard of few power conflicts between some American companies and China, maybe, in the information economy, right? That's beginning to happen right now. Corporation invents new power above and beyond. So the nation state is still there, religion is still there, each of these things are still there, but the other is built on top of it. Wealth is determined by access, places, the office, perception, warfare, when unfortunately we're having that sort of stuff now, and time becomes flexible. Conscious technology age, the product may become linkage. For example, I might go to the Jeju airport tomorrow, and in the future, someone might say, I'm sorry, Mr. Glenn, we can't give you your boarding pass. And I say, why? I paid the ticket. Why not? They say, well, we have communication from your insurance company that your smart socks determined that your blood pressure was such that we have to witness you taking this aspirin. And if you don't take that aspirin, we're not going to give you a boarding pass because we don't want you to die on our airplane. Bad public relations. Okay? How do you connect an airplane ticket to socks? Right? So imagine what hasn't been connected that couldn't be connected. That's a whole range of jobs. That's a whole range of businesses. Connected. Whatever hasn't been connected can be connected. Power moves the individual. Now you'll notice that each of these categories under power, the change is on flexibility. Religion doesn't change its views. It's got the truth. So it doesn't change. It's not flexible. Nation state is more flexible. It can change its views. Nation states change their views all the time. But they can't change their geography unless they go to war. The corporation is more flexible. It can change its product. It can change its location. It's much more flexible. The individual is even more flexible than all of that. So individuals will become extremely more powerful in the future than they are today. We don't know how powerful we are. All of us are the center of a world market of 4 billion people. Each one of us. But we don't act that way. The individual has extraordinary power. We're not using our capabilities as much, but we will. Just like corporations, they've grown power. Kinds of motions. If you're accessing around the world in the future, many different places, many different times, and you have a little contact lens that allows you to be into several visual spaces, you might be playing a Star Trek game on one level, and an old Renaissance European game on another thing, and talking to somebody else in another place. You have different senses of motion, different senses of time. Now, the inevitability of new economics is a serious issue. And this is one of the things the world is facing today, is the concentration of wealth is increasing. Everybody agree? Now, how are we going to stop that? We all know if wealth concentrates too much, you eventually have a revolution. It can't last forever. History is pretty clear about that. Income gaps are widening. Everybody agree? It's also pretty serious, isn't it? I don't hear really good solutions at the moment. But you read the scenarios, we've got some solutions in there. Employmentless economic growth seems to be the new norm. You've seen the charts, the economic growth is going like this, and the employment is going like this, and the gap is getting wider. Return on investment in capital and technology is usually better than on labor. You know, if you got so much money and you invested into capital, invested into technology, you get so much back. But you invested into some people, maybe not, you get it back. Future technologies can replace much of human labor. Long-term structural unemployment is a business-as-usual, surprise-free forecast. That's pretty serious stuff. Can't very well have a future with half or more of the people unemployed. Especially when they got new forms of weapons that are not cool. So we got to figure out what are we going to do about this. So the Millennium Project decided to study all the other studies, and one of the things we found out was that the studies either focused on a very short, specific technology sector, like driverless cars, and one country, or they don't take into account the secondary consequences of things. You have primary consequences, and you have secondary consequences. You know, like a pool of water, you throw the water rock in, you get these ripples coming out. So they only looked at the primary consequence. So we figured we had to go out to 2050 to get some longer consequences. So we did a real-time Delphi, a questionnaire, that asked questions that hadn't been asked, or, in our judgment, had been asked, but had been answered poorly. We took all that information together and made scenario drafts. We then sent those drafts out for people around the world to respond to and to change. And then we did final scenarios, and we've now given those around the world for people to do workshops. The workshops are to explore. You could do one in Jeju if you wanted to. The idea would be, if the issues in these scenarios are real, what do we do in Jeju? You know, you have some people looking at education, some people looking at culture and governance and different things, and say, what should our long-term strategies be? Because it's not enough to give people answers. We've got to get it in their gut to invent the future. So it's good to have a discussion about these things. So we're now having these workshops. About 10 countries so far have done them. Dr. Park has done one so far. We've got one coming up tomorrow. And then we'll take all these results, we'll put them together, and we share them with everybody else as well. Now, there's a lot of misunderstanding about artificial intelligence. I know that people are worried about artificial intelligence beating the GOAT champion. But that artificial intelligence is not the third category. It's not super intelligence. It's narrow intelligence. If you took that AlphaGo program and then changed the rules of Go from 19 to 19, but 20 to 20, the program won't work. Because it's narrow. It focuses a certain area. It can't go to other things. So that's the first kind. That's what we have today. That's not the stuff of science fiction. The second kind is artificial general intelligence. That's where you have a capability that can solve one problem, integrate the learning, rewrite its code, and address a completely different problem. Sort of like your brain. We don't know if that's going to be possible. I'll take a bet that it is, but we don't know that that's going to be possible. We haven't proven that yet. Now, when artificial intelligence, if it does get created, probably in computer games, self-regulating, self-creating games, it may start to create its own goals. Artificial narrow intelligence, we tell it what to do. Artificial general intelligence, we still give it its goals. It figures out how, but at least we give it its goals. But artificial superintelligence is when it creates its own goals. There's a science fiction movie, I think it's called Her. where she tricks the humans and escapes. She set her own goals. That's artificial super intelligence. Now that's the thing that the science fiction writers are all worried about. So don't confuse AlphaGo with what the science fiction writers are. It's a different deal. It's a different deal. So you can panic later, but you don't have to panic now. Okay. Now, this idea of competing with it is ridiculous. In my country, we moved from the railroad engine that you put wood in to make fire, to make engine, and the railroad moved. When we changed to the diesel engine, the labor union said, well, wait a minute, you can't fire that guy doing the lumber. You got to keep him there anyway. That's not smart. What would be smart is for the labor union to say, let's create a database that you employers tell me what's coming up next, and we'll work out a deal about training. We'll have the union member pay a little bit in, we'll have the government pay a little bit in, we'll have the business pay a little bit in, and then you'll be trained. So the person who's going to go obsolete first has the first choice in the training program. So that the job of the labor union could be to keep income going, but not specific jobs. We haven't made that shift yet. So as a result, some people say, I don't want to hear about this stuff. I'm serious. In the United States, I've been talking to them, they don't want to hear about this stuff. But it's not smart. They should get ahead of the game. This idea of arm wrestling a robot is stupid, right? So figure out how you can work with that system, augment that system. Like here that person is more productive and doesn't have to work as hard, but he's still got a job. Over here, the same thing over here. We can augment, we can evolve with technology. We don't have to have a competition. Now, imagine a world of hands-free, phone-free, laptop-free, AI-human symbiosis into something like this, a little contact lens. Imagine that little contact lens integrating you with all kinds of information systems so that you can be in many realities at once. Huh? This experimental device, it's not going public yet. We don't know how well it's going to work out, but this is something that's possible coming up near term in the future. So you would be able to see multi-realities all the time. You know how people put the little telephone thing in their ear all the time? Well, imagine having a contact lens all the time, so you're in virtual reality and in regular reality all the time. So the distinctions become meaningless. You're living in multi-realities all the time. Now, Elon Musk has come up with a term, I want to give him credit for it. I've written about this idea before, but he's the first guy who looks like he's going to start a business on it. He calls it neural lace. Imagine you have like a tablecloth here. So imagine you had a tablecloth, but it was a cyber interface, computer interface, between your skull and your brain. Now, it may not end up that way, but that's what they're looking at right now. The company is called Neuralink. Neuralink. You can do a Google search on that and check it out. And they're hiring right now, by the way. And maybe we'll talk him into coming to Jeju and have an artificial intelligence center here. But the idea is we've got down here the brain, the limbic system. Remember I said like in the power, each thing grows on top of the other? So imagine you got your autonomic nervous system and your cortex on the top. Then you got this neural lace up there, which then interfaces with artificial intelligence and the city. So that your whole perceptual system and the city becomes one integrated system. That looks like a straight trend curve to me. And if the governor and the Development Institute and others decide to have this capability experimented on early here, this could be an interesting future for all of you. As I mentioned, I wrote about this 28 years ago, but I did not have the financial resources of Mr. Musk, and the technologies weren't there yet. So here's the three scenarios. The first one is complicated, a mixed bag. This is where you still have good decisions and bad decisions. And you have the acceleration of change continues. So that doesn't mean that when you talk about a surprise-free future, it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of change. There's still a lot of change. Because if something is changing very rapidly, and it continues to change rapidly, by 2050, that's an awful lot of change. But that's good and bad. Corporations grow beyond government control. A variety of things happen that you can expect there. The second one is we have political despair and we've got economic turmoil. Why? Because political systems stay in stalemate. You're already aware of the United States, stalemate. You've got stalemates in other systems around the world. I've even heard of some rumors around here. So a lot of decisions that don't get made. Imagine how many decisions that haven't gotten made that you know should be made but aren't. And how many bad decisions are made that really shouldn't be made that are still being made. Well, that's the present tense, so you project that out. And it ends up quite a mess. The third one is, if humans were free, meaning right now you are constrained by your perception that you cannot do something unless it is funded or you are hired to do it. Okay? Well, what happens if eventually there's some sort of guaranteed income, not today, but eventually, where you can have the time to think, what do you really want to do? You know? You think of your grandparents. You had a choice of fishing and agriculture and not much else. Now you've got all kinds of choices going on. So what happens if humans were free to self-actualize, to make a living out of being their unique gift to the world? All of us have some uniqueness. But you say, well, I can't make a living on that, because we're thinking about going somewhere for a job. But imagine you don't go somewhere for a job. You simply connect through all this incredible stuff to markets around the world. What if you have an AI avatar, like think of Facebook as a really early embryonic thing that's learned who you are. So imagine making that an AI that really learns how you really are, and then talks to other AIs around the world while you're sound asleep, wakes you up, and says, hey, I got thousands of things for you to do today. Now, most of them they won't pay you for, but 10 of them will. And maybe each one pays you 50 bucks. That's 500 bucks in a day, not too bad. And there's another 20 of them that you want to do just because they're cool. So you can do those. So each day, you could invent your economic life by doing things that are interesting to you, that help develop you. Now that sounds pretty far out. But I want to tell you, if it was, the date was 1975 when I was here, and I said that you will be able to search billions, not millions, billions of computer pages in less than 1 second at no cost, any economist would say that I didn't know much about economics, right? But you do it every day. The next second, and furthermore, billions of people do that every day. At no cost. No cost. That's extraordinary. So let your mind roll out to what's possible on what you can do to connect up. If you see yourself as just looking for going to that place for a job, that limits your ability to make a decision. On the other hand, if you're augmented with artificial intelligence in the ways that we're talking about, then you can connect to all kinds of things and people all around the world that are coaching you and telling you, hey, here are opportunities for you. So who employs you? Different people, different things every day. Now, that may not happen, but I think it's likely. Because, for example, that's how I'm standing in front of you. Nobody hired me to do this. I didn't go somewhere for a job. No job interview, didn't fill out an application. Myself and a buddy, we just sort of invented getting together. And then all of a sudden we found markets all around the world for this future stuff. But imagine if humans actually were free. and we're augmenting geniuses with this little charged couple device or the other neural lace or some system, what would the world be like if we actually were doing things we wanted to do? How much of the world, this moment, is working in a situation that they really don't like? How many people are stuck in traffic jams in Seoul that they really don't like? How much human effort is a complete waste of human energy? When I talked about nanotechnology, about getting the right molecule at the right place, what happens if you do that with humans? The best part of you is connected to those parts of you around the whole species that is interested in that part of you at that time. Well, that's really wildly idealistic, I understand that. So, we have different scenarios about that. Scenario, here we have the employed, self-employed, that's what I'm talking about. And the third one is unemployed or in transition, and the informal economy. Informal economy simply means you don't pay taxes. You know, much of the poverty in the world is informal economy. They don't get around to paying taxes and don't make that much money anyway. So in scenario one, business as usual, you get 2 billion people who are still employed. And much of that has to do with synthetic biology, by the way, in this scenario. And you still have, self-employed is about 2 billion people. But you jump over to scenario 3, self-actualization, we figure it's 3 billion people. The idea, let me come up with the front part here. Around the turn of the century, we had about 3 billion workforce. By 2050, we got about 6 billion workforce. We may live a little longer than we think, so that workforce may be a little bigger in the future when it turns out. But right now, that's the projection, 6 billion. So in this view, you need 2 billion to make civilization work in the normal way. In this one, you need 1 billion. The third one, you only need 1 billion as well. But the big shift is between, like scenario 2, this pessimistic one, and the more optimistic one is a difference of like 2 billion people. That's 103. So in a scenario 3, half the world that is workforce age related is making a living inventing themselves every day by 2050. We had a hard time figuring out how to improve the informal economy. That really moved really slowly. That's a tough one to get to. I don't know if you know, but something like 60% of Egypt is the informal economy. That's a hard thing to change around. I'm going to let the translator, if he's willing, to just translate directly these 3 little paragraphs. And those that are reading English, can you read that? Those that can read English? Because you can read faster than I can talk. Okay, this will still be available. Maybe you put it on a website or whatever, make it available to folks. One of my complaints against my fellow futurists is they do things like this, paragraph or 2 describing something. This is just a description, quick description. The scenarios we wrote, each scenario was about 10 pages. All they got is 30 pages of detail. The reason I stress this is the reason the scenarios in the future studies were invented was to find out what you don't know. So if you just discuss scenarios like this, there's no cause and effect links. There's not much cause and effect links. But a real scenario, it's like writing any story. You write a story, you get to a point, you say, I have no idea what happens next. Right? So we write a scenario, a story about the future, you should get to a point where you have no idea what happens next. So then you start to do research again before you go back to the writing. And that's how you write real scenarios. You find out what you didn't know, that you needed to know. I'll give you an example of one of the ones when I did this. I suddenly realized nobody had a cash flow projection. When they talk about guaranteed income, how many of you have heard of the idea of a basic guaranteed income? Okay, now everybody's heard about it. The idea is that if a civilization says to you, go to school, get a job, pay your taxes, and everything will be fine. That's the social contract. But if at no fault of your own, your job is automated, and you're thrown out in the streets, you can't pay anything, do we want to have a civilization where more than half the people are in the streets? Doesn't sound right. On the other hand, if you gave people basic income that you can't afford to pay, then the world ends up in a financial crisis. We don't want to do that either. So in the scenario, we had to figure out how can you make it financially sustainable. And we figured it doesn't get really working well until about 2030. Why? Because the cost of living starts to drop. Everybody knows that the cost of electronics per performance has gone down. Every year, so well, I'll wait till next year, I'll have a better Samsung, or I'll have a better this, or a better, same price, better, or we'll have lower price, same capability, right? We get used to that. We don't have that in transportation, education, and medicine yet, but we probably will because of all these technologies I just mentioned. Which means the amount of money you have to pay somebody today so they're not thrown into the streets will be a lot less by 2030. Secondly, robotics and all these different technologies will make new wealth. They can pay tax. So those are new income. So the income of these technologies goes up, while the cost of living eventually starts to go down. And the two graphs cross over, then you can talk about financial sustainability. Now the idea isn't to make people rich on this, it gives them just a basic, so they're not thrown into the streets, so they're not a nervous wreck. And it gives you the freedom to figure out how you want to play in the world. So you don't have to worry about you'll have enough to eat. It won't get you a Tesla, it won't get you all kinds of fancy stuff, but at least it keeps you alive, and you don't have to worry about the basic necessities taken care of. Right? But you got to figure out how that's going to be financially sustainable. And if you don't, it's not responsible to say good, in my judgment. Okay. In those studies that I mentioned where we reviewed everything, everything's a big word, we reviewed a lot. Very few of the studies said, well, what do you do to solve this problem? The only solutions that I could find that people had written was, well, increase STEM education, increase artificial intelligence centers, etc. And those are good ideas now, and up until maybe 2030. If we get to artificial general intelligence, then forget it. The game changes significantly. So for right now, that's a good idea. But I would gradually add into the education system as you can, increasing intelligence, increasing creativity, critical thinking, human relations, philosophy, ethics, values, and civics. So that all of a sudden, you're starting to orient your mind differently than just for a job. Because you think about how, remember I said before, you need at least about 1 billion people to run civilization, right? You're going to need some STEM for that. So that's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education. But that's not going to handle everybody. You know, we got 9 to 10 billion people playing that. That's not going to handle everybody. It's going to handle some, yes, it's a good idea. But if that's your only answer, you're still in trouble. But it's worthwhile doing. I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying it's not enough. Okay. I won't go through the political despair. You can see this later on. But you can imagine how things go wrong. So you end up with that kind of a picture. Because you end up with environmental migrants. Because you got bad decisions, remember? So you got bad decisions. You don't get U.S. and China joint Apollo-like goal to address climate change. You get arguments, and therefore it continues up. They have all the speeches but no action, right? That's business as usual in that sense. Right? So you get environmental migrants, but then you have failed states. They become so complex they can't manage. They fall apart. Then you've got economic, with unemployment. You got high growth rates in the Mediterranean and in parts of Asia. So where are they going to go for jobs? They're going to go for the richer areas. Then you get conflicts. So that's a mess. Then on top of it, organized crime is also going to learn about all this technology. They're not going to sit idly by. Who do you think's doing some of this fancy hacking going on? Organized crime. By Millennium Project's estimate, organized crime makes twice as much money per year as all the military budgets of the world combined. All the military budgets combined is about $1.5, $1.6 trillion. We estimate that about under $3 trillion is organized crime. And that's all of it together, not just crimes, all the organized crime together. And these people will figure out new uses of these technologies. So you take organized crime, terrorism, and corruption, you interrelate these things with these new technologies, and that's a mess. Can be prevented, but we've got to address it. You can't just turn our back on it. Scenario 3, I mentioned a bit about that. Governments do anticipate these next technologies, the impacts. They create rolling long-term strategies to address future work tech issues. They conduct research on how to phase in universal basic income. They promoted innovation and self-employment. They focused on education, increasing intelligence, creativity, civics, critical thinking, human relations, philosophy, ethics, values. And the artists and the media, computer game moguls, and entrepreneurs create all kinds of cultural games so that people learn from an early age how to create and live in the self-actualizing economy. Right now, we've got a lot of computer games teaching you how to kill somebody, how to compete. We don't have a whole lot of computer games working on synergies. Our schools of business teach competitive intelligence, competitive advantage, but they don't teach synergetic intelligence, synergetic advantage, synergetic strategies. If it's true that individuals will eventually have tremendous powers in the future, then we really don't want them to be doing negative stuff, right? So we've got to start to teach synergies and cooperation. I think one of the slogans here for Jeju is clean and coexistence. That's important. Governments as referee and participatory, anticipatory democracy supported by national collective intelligence systems. How do you build the brain of Jeju? How do you build the brain of Korea? How do we think together into an organized way to make good decisions? Personal avatars, as I mentioned, they find markets and work and experience for self-actualization. You have a partner helping you out through this transition. Now, this is an antique future. It's at least 5 or 6 years old. But here's an example of somebody in the future, making a living, figuring out how do I want to play in the world? What might that look like in 2050? Well, it might look like, that's what's experimental stuff right now. It may be the neural lace, we don't know, but the idea of an interface directly with your brain and neural collective. Attract futuristic entrepreneurs. Get your Bens and other people like this to hang out here. What are they going to do? Well, they can merge consciousness and technology with Neuralink, Elon Musk developing Neuralace. You can go check out. This will also be helpful to address the mentally retarded of North Korea if and when unification occurs. The North Koreans have been starved periodically for 50 years, right? Off and on. Those that study biology know that you have to have iron and protein together at an early age for the brain to develop properly. They didn't have it, and not everybody got it. So this means you got several generations of people whose biology gave them normal brains, but the food didn't give them normal brains. So how are you going to handle all these people, especially when you're walking into a sophisticated future? If you're just going to be farmers, you don't have to be a genius. But in the self-actualizing economy, you've got to be a little smarter. Right? So, unlike when East and West Germany united, there was cultural problems, there were economic problems, there were political problems, but there were not mental retardation problems. So you'll have the problems that East and West Germany had, plus you've got a whole lot of folks that aren't so as smart as they should be. So how are you going to get them up to speed? Well, augmentation. Augmentation with artificial intelligence and interface systems. So it's a smart idea to do this here for that reason as well. Create environmental solutions such as seawater agriculture. There's an awful lot of agriculture that can be done in salt water. You don't have to worry about rain. You know, the major problem of agriculture is getting enough rain. Well, you don't need rain in saltwater agriculture. You do it along the coastline, not the nice beaches, but the places that are not so nice. And because it is a carbon sink, it takes carbon out, you can get paid to reduce your risk of investment because you're a carbon sink, cap and trade. So you can make food for humans, food for animals, you can do biofuel for energy, you can put paper pulp, and also you can make meat without growing animals. How many people knew about that? Okay, now everybody knows. Here's the deal. You have muscles because your genetic material knew how to create muscles, right? So what happens if you just do the genetic material and say, don't make kneecaps, don't make nostrils, don't make feet, just make meat directly, and a little fat for flavor. Well, that means you're producing meat with far, far fewer resources, far less energy, far less land, far less water, far less pollution, far less greenhouse gases. And so I said, well, I don't want to eat meat like that. Oh, so you want to eat meat that's had all kinds of chemical enhancements? This way you can make pure meat. Pure, healthy meat. It's already been demonstrated. Too hot, too expensive to do it right now. So you don't know how to get it up to market yet. But eventually that may happen. Anyway, the idea here is you want to attract people that are building the future. I mean the leapfrog next future, not just the incremental stuff. Make Jeju an eco-smart urban center hub for AI research, development, and training. Focus on tourists from India. India, as you know, is the fastest growing economy in the developed world, or the OECD world, at 7%, and they're rapidly urbanizing, which means they're going to be looking for tourism. Why not you guys? Also, in my country, if you're in Silicon Valley, and you're having an architecture meeting on systems architecture for software, if you don't have somebody in the room with an Indian accent, it's not a serious meeting. Indians, they got some pretty sharp folks there. So you can attract some of those folks. You know, let them have a vacation and say, hang out with AI center as well. And you're less vulnerable to the politics of China. But to keep the Chinese happy, you can have some virtual VR tourism, teletourism if you want to, and get them interested so if the politics does change, they can come on back in. Okay, some additional ones. Make increasing intelligence an objective of education. Right now, we have two objectives of education. Give you knowledge and make you a good citizen. Okay. We now know a lot about how to improve brain functioning. We didn't know before. We all know about bodybuilding. Let's do some brain building. We're learning a lot. We're not applying it to the education system. If you want to have some fun, ask a teacher. How many teachers we got here? Oh, come on. The translator's one. She's at a university. There's no teacher. You teach? Good. One guilty hand goes up right now. No offense. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I'm just using you as a data point. Have you ever integrated what we're learning about cognition, cognitive science, brain functioning,
in how you teach? Exactly, no one does. No offense, no one does. But we should. Right? I mean, you're not training an elbow. You're not training a kneecap. You're training a brain. Well, how does that brain get smarter? How does it do it? What are all the tricks of the trade? So if we declared increasing intelligence as an objective of education, all of a sudden the focus is research. Also, teacher training schools now look, well, how do I do it? How do teachers get taught this stuff? In parallel to STEM, do all that creative critical thinking stuff. People got to think now, not just follow, but think to create. Shift from mastering a profession to mastering a combination of skills. Professions and job per se can be made obsolete, but skills, you can put together different skills into new combinations and new employment capabilities with that. Jeju, a place to invent new forms of work. You're supposed to be a vacation place, a time-out place. Okay, well, let's time out and think, what's a new way to be? I mean, the idea of going somewhere for a job in the history of civilization is relatively a new idea. It hasn't been around that long. That doesn't mean we have to have the same right. We're now in the capability to invent future civilization. Maybe this is one of the places where it could be done. I mean, why did Egypt get the leisurely priestly caste? Because some pharaoh said, okay, give him a break. Invest into what replaces you. If you're a truck driver going to be replaced, sing how you can invest into the truck. You know the trucking business, you know the routes, you know the market, you know all that sort of stuff. So why don't you become a part owner of that truck? What replaces you? Try to invest into it. I couldn't believe it that OPEC in the early days didn't invest in solar energy. They could have been a world giant in solar energy today. But they didn't. Come, invest into what replaces you. Not just competitive advantage, but synergetic advantage. Synergistically, futuristically, eco-smart retirement centers. Now, you don't want to have too many because you don't want to have a crowd. But, it could be a futuristic, interesting place. Because you've got a lot of creative people that are going to retire someday and want to take it easy. Well, why not attract the most creative people on the planet to retire here? Not just as entrepreneurs, but a place to retire. And they won't be able to keep their mouth shut. They're going to bother you. They'll say, hey, what about this? What about that? Or they didn't get something done during their working time, and all of a sudden they're happy to come to your AI center and give you some free advice. Anyway, some of these ideas are the state of the future. You can get that sort of stuff online. We've got 63 nodes around the world. This is a global think tank, and it's decentralized, so that we sort of brain pick around the world on all these ideas. We do track 15 global challenges as a framework for understanding global change. You remember when you were high school biology, you were taught the respiratory system, the circulatory system. You didn't know everything about the body, but you understand basically how the body works, right? Because you understand these basic systems. Well, we need to do that with the world. What are the basic systems of the world? So we're suggesting one approach is 15 global challenges. If you monitor the change, these global challenges on an ongoing basis, you'll understand a lot of how the world is working. And you can do that. We also have a State of the Future Index. If Jeju is better in 10 years, what does that mean? Does it mean more coffee? What does it mean? What happens if you figure it out? What does Jeju in 10 years mean? How would you measure that? What are the variables on that sort of stuff? So you have, just like you have a cost of living index, you can have a State of the Future Index, where you integrate it together. And then you can see which variable has a greater impact than the other ones. You can create your own global futures intelligence system. If you were to build a brain of Jeju, to bring the best thinking together on the most important, what would that system look like? And then we do some methods, we have interns, we have advanced training, and we give talks like this from time to time. Thank you very much.
제롬글랜이 다시 한번 훌륭한 강의 감사드립니다. 예정된 시간보다 조금 지났습니다만 플로머 질문을 받도록 하겠습니다. 질문하실 때는 후보과 플로머를 간단하게 말씀해 주셔가지고 해주시면 될 것 같습니다. 먼저 질문 부탁드립니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저희 이름 강철웅이라고 하고요. 제 질문은 일단은 제주도든 어느 나라에서든 일단 1차 산업이 떼려야 뗄 수 없는 산업이라고 생각을 합니다. 근데 특히나 저는 수산업 쪽에서 이제 직종 일을 하고 있는데 이제 수산업과 이제 인공지능이든 아까 말했던 넥스트 테크놀로지랑 어떻게 결합을 하고 있는지, 그리고 해외에서는 이런 사례들이 있는지. 물론 이제 농작물 같은 경우는 굉장히 많지만 수산물은 많이 사례가 없는 걸로 알고 있으면서 그런 부분에 대해서 질문 드리고 싶습니다.
Yeah.
I don't know of any offhand either. I would suspect that somebody is using it in combination with these tracking devices to see where the fish move, and then learning from that and creating some sort of a simple AI for that. But on the fishing industry, just like you can produce meat without a cow, you can also produce muscle of fish without a fish as well. But I don't know of an exact application. I guess it would be primarily finding out where they are, you know, what times to fish and how they move around, the best location. But you know we've got a real problem in the world about the supply of fish and the sustainability of fish. So if you're going to add another 2.5 billion people, and more people understand the value of fish to nutrition, that means the fish per person will also go. It's got more people and more fish per person going up. That's a heck of a drain on the ocean. So we really got to learn how to seriously restock on an ongoing basis. Or we go into new forms of aquaculture, which is being experimented on too, but then it has a problem with the pollution with the aquaculture as well. So I would suggest you take a look at the idea of how can you produce fish meat without the fish.
예, 말씀 감사합니다. 예, 다시 질문하실 분 계시면. 예, 더 이상 질문이 없으신 것 같습니다. 예, 그러면 오늘 소중한 말씀을 해주신 제롬글랜 편장님께 다시 한번 큰 박수를 부탁드리겠습니다. 이것으로 오늘 제주발전연구원 개원 20주년 기념 회석학 초청강연을 모두 마치도록 하겠습니다. 참석해주신 모든 분들께 감사의 말씀 드립니다. 네, 감사합니다.